Hi everyone, it's Game Trigger. In today's video, I'll be covering why the PS Vita failed. It was there for quite some time until Sony just mysteriously pulled it off the shelves and the console just simply became history. Now, anybody who's been around in the 2000s and the 2010s, the Sony PSP was one of the consoles that established a booming handheld market. They gave Nintendo with their Game Boy Advance a serious run for its money. Sure, the Game Boy was the reigning king in the handheld market. Then the PSP strolled along and threatened the king's reign for quite some time. Okay, a quick history lesson concerning the PS Vita. The Sony PS Vita was released on 17th December 2011 with a crazy launch price of $250. The Nintendo 3DS had pretty much the same launch price, but the Nintendo 3DS outsold the PS Vita. In 2015, the 3DS sold more than 42 million units, whereas the Vita sold close to 13 million units. Nintendo reigned and continues to reign supreme in the handheld gaming market. Hail to the king! So why did the PS Vita even fail to begin with? How did a more powerful handheld console fail to woo gaming companies and fail to make lightning strike twice unlike its predecessor? Let's find out. The first and the most obvious point were the expensive memory sticks. Yeah, this seemed to be a cheap trick by Sony to fleece gamers out of their hard-earned money. The 3DS, on the other hand, could use inexpensive SD cards despite costing the same as the PS Vita. The Vita was already expensive to begin with, but charging an additional $120 for a 32 GB memory stick, it was nothing short of insane, alright. Who even thought this was a good idea? The second reason for the Vita's failure was the lack of first-party support during year one. Sony certainly took its sweet time to take its baby seriously until a year had passed or so. Meanwhile, during this time, Nintendo aggressively invested in its IPs and the 3DS's game lineup. Names like Pokemon, Fire Emblem, Mario, and The Legend of Zelda are all household names. You see, developing games and software for your console requires not only a humongous amount of resources, they also have to be expertly managed by teams who know especially what they're doing, and they do it better than no other. Nintendo could commit in this regard, whereas Sony could, but again, for some reason they did not when the time was prime for all of this. Anyway, as far as the PS Vita's exclusives go, unlike with the 3DS, I had to look up the PS Vita's exclusives since they're only a blur, unlike Nintendo, which had made it really obvious that these are some serious titles for a handheld console and they're great games in their own right. Without taking too much of your time, the PS Vita exclusives, or kinda exclusive games I can name right off the bat, we had Uncharted, Killzone Mercenaries, and Gravity Rush. No Twisted Metal though. They gave us a really awesome Twisted Metal TV show, but no Twisted Metal game in neither this generation nor the last one.
What? Who are they calling a mysterious flying pet?
Come on, Sony. The Sony PS Vita had all these super duper specs that looked great on paper, but if you could not just simply make good use of them, what is the point even of having all these awesome specs like having motion sensors built in or an OLED 16:9 screen with a back touchpad if a game console's got no games? Sony was not even open to homebrew software or indie studios making games. However, being gamers and hackers, we were able to circumvent those company-imposed restrictions. The PS Vita could have given the Nintendo 3DS and even the Nintendo Switch a jolly good show if things were done right and that it lasted long enough. Most unfortunately, the console that could was set up for disaster. As many game developers lost interest, releasing games on the Vita felt more and more like a gamble rather than a prudent financial decision which would net a gaming company a fair amount of profits. This was not a risk any competent game studio would be taking unless they were in the mood of, shutting down.
What? Who are they calling a mysterious flying pet?
So what else? Oh yes, the fact it was marketed as a pocket PlayStation and failed to live up to the hype. Then of course there was mobile gaming. Back in the day, mobile gaming was some seriously entertaining stuff, and I lived through it. Not only did you have the rise of Android and the iPod Touch was still there, you had super awesome sauce games like Cut the Rope, Angry Birds, Temple Run, and Asphalt. All of that without the invasion of the ads. However, a similar issue was already faced by the 3DS. Yet it dominated despite being dwarfed in terms of console specs if it were scaled up against the PS Vita. There was also this interesting remote play feature made popular on the PS Vita. You could just simply pick up, play, and continue your PS4 games on your Sony handheld. It was an interesting feature, but it would only work if both consoles were connected to the same internet, and that the internet connection in question would be stable on top of being fast. But since the console struggled with popularity at the time, well, it was pigeonholed into an appropriate app so you could pretty much play on your mobile phone what was once intended on the PS Vita. Sony kowtowed to the popularity of the thriving mobile gaming platform. The feature, while interesting, it was not all that awesome from a technological point of view. Yes. You were merely streaming your PS4 game to your PS Vita, while your PS4 still did the heavy weightlifting and all your Vita was doing was acting as a second screen. I'm not saying the feature was terrible, but it was interesting. Eventually, when they released an app on mobile phones to remote play, I basically ended up playing Call of Duty Advanced Warfare campaign on the mobile phone. It was laggy, but still playable, and I played it on veteran difficulty. Aren't I the masochist?
What? Who are they calling a mysterious flying pet?
So anyway, these are the primary reasons why I think the PS Vita failed. Will we ever see another Sony handheld or something similar? I'm going to shoot down anything that's been brewing in the rumor mill like this. No, we will not. Clean and simple. It was already a mismanaged misadventure on Sony's end, and any company would not want to venture further and take any second chances with something that nets them a massive loss. So no folks, no new PS Vitas, and probably no new handhelds. But then, of course, let's just take it with a pinch of salt because I could be wrong, but I'm just stating the obvious. To all my fans and super fans out there, I thank you kindly for tuning in and staying all the way till the end of the video. There will be no brakes on the content train, only full throttle up ahead. Take care.